Okay, everybody ready? Coming off last week's game against Penn State, obviously 4-2, and got a big challenge in front of us now as we come into this week. UM comes in here, Michigan comes in here 6-1, 4-0 in the Big Ten. I think they're playing outstanding, ranked in the top 10 in the country, which deservedly so. And again, it'll be a challenge. When you look at them, I think you look at them defensively, a lot of starters back, two linebackers back that start, entire secondary, really 3 out of their top four guys up front, playing very well on the defensive side of the ball, obviously, a lot of pressure, leading the nation, I think, in pass defense, various other things in the Big Ten. Offensively, quarterbacks playing well, running the football successfully, big play offense in a lot of respects, so very well coached football team, and we'll be challenged as always. That's what you get in this conference. I think when you look at it, obviously it's a noon game, it's a rivalry game, and when you look at it, a lot's been said and all that kind of stuff, but when you look at it, I think it's good for college football, I always have, and I also think it's good for the state of Michigan. Gets everybody's enthused, and I'll take some questions and go from there. No questions, man, it's unbelievable.
Coach, just a brief look back at Penn State. Defending a quarterback dual threat like Trace McSorley, you'll see somebody similar in Shea Patterson, but you held him to his second lowest yardage total combined of the season. The lowest was Pitt and Pat Narduzzi. Is there any comparing of notes conversations that take place with an ally like Pat Narduzzi when you're preparing for an opponent?
Yeah, we talked to Pat. I think Mike Tressel talked to Coach Narduzzi a little bit, and I touched base with him through text a little bit, but I think that's sort of common. You look for people that are similar in what you've done and those type of things, and you look to see how people play people. And you're looking at people that play a 30 front as opposed to a 40 front, and you look for commonalities, I think, across the board. And the biggest one is obviously what you do against that particular team, year in and year out. Excuse me, if their coaching staff hasn't changed or the coordinators haven't changed, if they're still using the same type of players, and, so you sort of get a history. And I think usually history is the best indicator of the future. And when you look at things like that across the board, I mean, that's, of course, everybody else knows that, so they change. So it's that's why you coach.
Mark, obviously 8-3 against Michigan in your career. Your 3 losses are only by, I think, combined 15 points. How have you been able to get your guys to buy in to treating this game, just getting up for this game every week over such a long period of time without ever really having a letdown?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons is that when I came here in 1995, I experienced things firsthand at the start when Coach Saban was here, and so I understood when I came back as the head football coach that how important this game was to our fans, to the state, and sort of went with it from there. We've got a lot of players from the state of Michigan; they understand that as well, and so it becomes sort of ingrained in people as you go. And we just sort of point towards it and try and do our very, very best.
Mark, you have mentioned a number of times how this is personal. Did it become more personal for you in 07, or was it personal the first time you stepped on campus here?
No, I think you learn these things, as you go forward. You play your first game in any rivalry situation. I remember playing our first game at, I was at South Carolina playing Clemson, and it's a big game down there, huge game. And everybody talked about it, told you about it, and you really didn't know what to expect. But when you played that football game for the first time, you understood after the fact. I think that's the same thing here. You sort of understand after the fact. So after the '95 game, I understood, and then I just sort of brought it forward. And I think though that it's a game like a lot of games where you just remember that like I told you before, I've coached over 150 games here as a head coach. You sort of tend to remember those games that are special games. Leading up to the game, whether it's a bowl game or whether it's a big game against Penn State last week or whatever it is, you tend to remember those, and I think this game sort of points in that direction.
Do you think 07 intensified it at all?
Couldn't hurt. Things that go along, I don't, I'll tell you one thing about the 3 games that we've had, 15, 16, and 17. I think that they've been playing with great sportsmanship on the field. I really do. There's not, everybody's playing hard, and I think that's good for college football. Well-coached football teams, and respect what they've done.
Admittedly, Mark, last week at Penn State, you guys were more aggressive on the offensive side of the ball, trick plays, other things. Do you expect that you guys are going to maintain maybe a more aggressive approach to offense like you did on Penn State?
Well, I've always thought that we've taken an aggressive offensive approach. Now, it's all about, on offense, it's all about the numbers. It's all about the production, just like on defense. If you're not stopping people on defense, people think you're not aggressive. I think it's all about production and really what have you done lately? And, that's college football, as you guys said, I needed to adapt better, and then last week I'm a genius. So it's amazing. Education, how fast it can go.
Mark, you look at this matchup, and on paper, these two defenses are right up there, if not among the top 10 in the country, and right there. I guess as a coach on the defensive side, how do you like and approach those kind of matchups against another defensive-minded team?
Well, you can't make mistakes on either side of the ball, really. You can't give up easy ones and blow coverage or a gap. And then also, you can't turn the ball over. I think that's huge. Traditionally, the team that's rushed for the most yardage has usually won the game. That's probably true in most cases. That's what I said last week in terms of our numbers. But that's been tradition, so it's sort of hinged on defense. I mean, most games usually do. I'm very impressed with their defense, very impressed with their front four, front seven. They're active, they're quick, they're very well coached. Same with their back end. They've got a good football team.
Mark, there's been times in the past in this rivalry where maybe one team or the other hasn't been playing as well. But this is another one of those cases where, based on where you guys are both at right now, it becomes very important in the division as well. How much does that, ramp things up even more? Is it still going to be intense anyway? How does that change things?
Well, I think it's always intense, but I think you're playing for more as you go forward. I think that because we're now in the same division, well, we have been, I guess we have been. But the take on the division race itself, it's an Eastern Division game and that type of thing. And as I said earlier, October sort of points towards November. And if you can play well in October, then you're going to be in the hunt for things in November. So that's our intent as we move forward. Yeah, but I think it intensifies things.
Mark, it's been 10 years since that 2008 game when you finally broke through in Ann Arbor. What do you remember about that game and that feeling after that game?
I remember Blair White catching the slant and going the distance early in the game. I remember, Keyshawn Martin, I think he was a freshman, and he ran an end around, and I headbutted him and got a headache. I remember that, barely. But I thought we played pretty well on defense, and it was just a big moment. I can't even tell you the score of the game, but I just remember it was a big moment for us.
Mark in the middle here. Is their defensive line as good of a single unit that you guys have faced, do you think, this year? And why or why not, and what makes them that good?
Yeah, I would say probably so, with no disrespect to anybody else we've played. I think that they're very active, as I said earlier. They're quick, and great pass rush, those type of things. So very, very good.
Mark, 2 fake field goals and a fake punt. Obviously, you would prefer to catch teams by surprise, but how much putting that on film do you think can just be a natural benefit on forcing teams to devote practice time to preparing for what might not even happen on a Saturday?
We got to find some more. I don't know. You got to take risks as coaches sometimes too. And I thought it was the right time. We needed to get a drive going, and it was late in the first quarter, and so I thought that was the time. And as far as the field goal, that was the time. We didn't execute it. It's all about, at the end of the day, can you execute? Can one side or the other, can they execute? And so we didn't get that one done, but we worked at it.
How do you decide when it's time to take one of those risks, and how much of that is premeditated going into it?
I can't tell you that. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, sometimes you just step across the line a little bit. But doesn't always work, but in that one, we were 1 out of 2, I guess.
For a program built on winning in the trenches and playing good defense, I think trick plays seem to be a little bit off-brand, I guess, maybe. When did you become a guy that liked?
I've always been like that, I think.
Where does that come from?
Stepping out and taking risk. I think at times, as a football coach, you need to step out and you need to take a risk. You can't always put it on your players and have them have all the risk. Say, well, the guy didn't tackle the guy, or, he didn't make the first down, or they didn't do that, or they didn't do this. I think sometimes, as the head football coach, you got to step out there and say, this is my decision. If it doesn't work, then it's on me.
So did you pick that up from a mentor or anyone, or is that completely of your own?
No, I don't think so. But doesn't mean I'm going to fake anything.
Mark, in a big rivalry game like this, which you have obviously done well in, how do you find the balance between having your team fired up to the max and being loose but not being over aggressive or over anything? How do you strike that emotional balance in a big game like this with your team?
I just tell them to get ready. Everybody's got a different way to get ready, but when the time comes, you generally have a feeling, and you need to be at your very best every single week, not just this weekend, but every single weekend. You want to be at your very best. I think everybody's got a different way to get there, and I'm pretty accepting of that. And then collectively, we go as a group. And we have little things we try and do, maybe as we go forward, and collectively unify us. But I think most of the time, getting ready for a football game is a long-lasting thing. You got to be ready. And it's got to be. If you get ready on Friday night, and you're not ready Saturday at noon. That's not good. So you need to be ready at game time. I believe in that, and we try and do our best to get there. And but when you see it, I guess.
Coach, back up the middle here, your end game calculus. Twice in that Penn State game, you were not willing to settle for a game-tying field goal. You took that stab with Felton Davis 3 times over the weekend. I saw teams go 3 and out, have the other team use their timeouts, trying to sit on a lead. When you've got 1 first down to get, where you do a victory formation, what's your philosophy there?
If we're on offense?
If you're in the lead on offense, and you have that last possession,
Okay.
rather than running it into the line 3 times, making the other team take 3 timeouts and then punt.
Okay. I think it's been varied. It depends on the game, depends on the opposing team's offense and your defense. You got to look at all the different aspects. Are you away? Are you home? So I think there's a lot of things that go into that. You certainly want to make people use their timeouts, I believe, because then they don't have them on the back end. So there is something to that. There's been other times where we've said, hey, play it like we're behind, and there's been other times we've said, hey, play it like it's 1st and 10 early in the game. So I think you have to keep people off base, and I think you do that because, collectively, if you don't, then you have a history, and then that history then indicates what you'll do, and that's not always good. Hopefully I'm talking in circles. That would be good.
Mark, I don't think anyone in this room thought you could win last week. And you were asked on the field after the game how this program continues to win these games that are so unlikely, and you didn't say much. But I'm wondering if this chip is real. It doesn't work for everybody, but does it just work for this program?
I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I think I said by God's grace too, I think. But, so there's a lot of things that go into this. It's belief system, it's conviction, it's commitment, it's execution on the field, it's mental toughness, it's physical toughness. There's a lot of that goes into it. And then going back to the question over there earlier, you need to be ready. And then hopefully as the game flows, games are long, college football takes a long time, it's 3.5 hours. So if something happens early in the football game, doesn't mean it's going to finalize the game. I think it's over a period of time. But if you can just build throughout the game and not waver and stay committed throughout a football game, you have a better chance. Doesn't mean it's going to continue on, but if you can just continue to stay committed, I think good things can happen. And that's what we talk about. We just talk about it's going to be a long football game, and just do your job. do your job and do it to the best of your ability with a lot of enthusiasm.
Mark, you mentioned the last 3 games in this rivalry specifically, that they were clean, better sportsmanship. What do you attribute that to?
I think Coach Harbaugh does a great job. I think he's all about that. I think he tries to play the game like it's supposed to be played. And I think he respects the football game. I think he respects the game, the general game of football. And we do the same at our place, and I think it permeates down through the players. I hope that's the case.
I know that you don't like to talk about injuries, but how much does that play into not releasing a depth chart this week for this game?
Well, I can keep giving the depth chart, but it really doesn't matter because a lot of the times it changes on Saturday afternoon. So just this week, we just decided, hey, let's just not do it.
And let's follow that. Just the fourth quarter last week, you talked about the lack of energy and the flatness in the Northwestern game. What did you see maybe in the fourth quarter with your team that was maybe a little different last week?
Well, throughout the game, and I think that could be attributed to a lot to the environment there, because it was a great environment to play in. Penn State has a great environment, and I'll look forward to seeing Michigan State's environment in Spartan Stadium this weekend, because it can get live. It needs to. Again, I go back to our guys came with conviction and sense of commitment and understood that it was going to be a big task and just kept working it. And as we kept working it and we kept hanging in there, you know, that tide started to turn a little bit. As you saw in the last 2 drives, it started to turn. And that big stadium got quiet. And that's usually what ends up happening. If you could just, you know, keep moving the rock. As I've said before, you know, just keep pushing. Don't take your hands off that big rock. You know, eventually maybe it'll roll a little bit. I think that's what we did.
Going back to the trick plays, Mark, I was just curious, if you're willing to say, are the fake punt and then the halfback pass, are those linked in terms of you knew if you completed the punt that you were going to go right to the pass right away?
No, I had nothing to do with that one. You know, that was Coach Warner's call. The fake punt was my call. There was no link.
Gotcha. And then I know you guys like to rotate offensive linemen. That's what you've been doing with this game. A little bit out of your hands, but you played mostly one the whole game, if not the whole way. What benefits did you see from having that consistency in there?
Well, I thought we were running the ball okay, you know, not dynamically, but we were moving it, you know, 5 yards here, 5 yards there. That's you know, trying to empower our coaches. That's Coach Staten's call, and that's what he wanted to do and stay with it. So really that's what we decided to do.
What do you remember about crossing paths with Ed Warner way back at Akron, and what's it like having his son here now?
Ed was a graduate assistant when I was there, and actually what I do remember is, I'm not sure everybody knows this, but what I do remember is that I was out one evening and met Nick Saban, so I talked to Nick. He had a graduate assistant position open up here for George Burles. Ed was on his way going to Middletown, Ohio to be a high school coach, and came up here to East Lansing to interview, became a graduate assistant here at Michigan State. Before the rest of his, met his wife, and you know, so he's got some spark in him, you know. But very good coach. Obviously was at Notre Dame, was at Ohio State, was at Kansas, did an outstanding job there, was at I think Missouri as well. Very, very good coach, very good offensive line coach.
What was it like recruiting a son, and have you had conversations with him since then?
Yeah, I've talked to Ed about, in fact, he came on the home visit. You know, he was at the home visit when I went into the house. It's a little different, but you know, it was positive, very positive. So, and again, you know, with the background of Michigan State, you know, they grew up in some ways as Spartans, and the opportunity to come here was a positive one for him and his family. He's doing a great job.
Mark, your players come in here next. Do you ever worry on big games like this, what they're going to say? We're looking for juicy quotes, and you're telling them to be careful. Do you get anxious for Tuesday at Michigan week to get over?
No, I don't get anxious. I mean, for them, no. I don't. You know, I've got a lot of faith in our players in terms of what they're saying, especially in these 3 guys. I think our 3 captains are coming over. You know, they just need to be able to stand behind their words the best they can. So they'll do a great job. that, I can get out of here.